mister, you're a star. The one and only is who you are. The moves that you make a million hearts break. You're a star. Yes, you are.
Hey everyone, it's Jonathan, and welcome back to Every Version Ever. Today I'm joined by Mark Brown with a movie that he chose, kicking off the rest of our series on Pinocchio, finally starting to get into some movies that are really one of my favorite reasons for doing this podcast. And not because they're good, well, some of them are, but one of the biggest reasons I love doing Every Version Ever is that I find or am introduced to all kinds of obscure and just sometimes straight up bizarre versions of things. And today we're going to start getting really eclectic with our Pinocchio versions. We've done the most famous one, we've done the most recent few versions to have been released. Now we're going to start getting into the deep cuts, starting with today's forgotten animated masterpiece. Well, something anyway. Pinocchio and the Emperor of the Night. This movie is a 1987 Filmation production, and it really is one of those perfect examples of an 80s animated fever dream. Half the time I was watching this thing, I had no idea what was going on. And even now, a few weeks removed from when I watched it, I would struggle to explain a lot of the things that happen in the movie. It's kind of something you just have to watch for yourself. Or listen to us try to explain it right now. So, had you seen this before this time?
No, I haven't seen it. I had vaguely heard about it. I think I was just looking up Filmation movies one day. They're that animation company that kind of gets forgotten even by me. But I forget, they actually made theatrical animated movies. I don't think any of them were particularly good or popular, but they did make them. And I think I came across Pinocchio, the Emperor of the Night, when I looked in their filmography. This looks interesting to check out someday. And then you opened a door to allow someday to happen.
Yeah, there are like a weirdly large number of forgotten animated Pinocchio movies. So this is kind of what I wanted, not this specific one, but this kind of a thing was what I wanted to talk about when I asked if you had any suggestions for animated Pinocchios. Because I don't know what it is, but there's something about Pinocchio that so many people have taken and they just want to do their own thing with it. And this is definitely somebody doing their own thing with Pinocchio, because none of this has anything to do with the book. It's sort of like they wanted it to be a sequel to Disney apparently, but it doesn't really have anything to do with Disney, except I think some of the voices sound very Disney-esque.
I think they changed enough stuff to prevent them from getting a lawsuit. So,
well, from what I read, Disney did try to sue them, but I think it got thrown out because the book is in the public domain. So,
okay.
But yeah, the Pinocchio's voice sounded at times very much like the 1940s one, and then the glow bug, Willikers. I could have sworn he was trying to do it was Don Knotts. But I could have sworn he was trying to do a Cliff Edwards impersonation, trying to sound like Jiminy Cricket.
Yeah, this is a movie where as soon as I heard the voices, I'm trying to figure out who are these people. I'm trying to guess them before looking them up. So when this glow bug, G Willikers, which again Jiminy Cricket, G Willikers.
I didn't even think of that.
Exactly.
That's true.
Exactly. That's literally why I think, they were going to be more blatant about copying Disney. And they're like, oh, no, let's change it a little bit. Oh, not G Willikers. There you go. It's totally different. But
I can't believe I missed that. That's so perfect.
There you go. But yeah, and when he starts talking, I'm like, oh, that sounds like Don Knotts. It's not Don Knotts with a cold or something, but I think you hit the nail on the head there about maybe he's trying to do a Cliff Edwards, but
yeah.
But Pinocchio's voice, I think, is probably one of the better voices I think in this film. I forget what else the guy did who voiced Pinocchio.
Well, the guy who did Pinocchio is Scott Grimes, and as soon as I read that, I was like, wait a minute, I know that name. So I clicked on it, and he currently is playing Gordon Malloy in The Orville, which is a sci-fi
Ah,
series that's like currently happening. And I actually watch and like that show. I was like, wow, that is so weird that this guy who is like probably in his 40s, and I'm now listening to him as a little kid playing Pinocchio.
do you think he entertains the cast of that show with stories about this time? His recording sessions of Pinocchio and Emperor of the Night.
Yeah, sure, why not?
And like the dad, oh, not the dad, well, the dad, Geppetto. Like I'm listening to that, I'm like, okay, that must be Tom Bosley, and which led to our side discussion that you brought up about Tom Bosley, I guess, doing Geppetto and something else. I don't know if you wanted to tell the folks about it.
There's this weird movie that I discovered called Geppetto's Secret, and apparently it's only sort of exists. Like, and I even had Nikki Trivial Theater look into this, and then she sent Dan TYTD reviews on a wild goose chase trying to find out if this movie actually exists, and they both came up empty. It's we're all pretty sure that it's somehow stalled in production. And then I think at some point they tried to do a Kickstarter to get funds for it, and then it just never materialized. But this was Tom Bosley playing Geppetto again, but several years later, like maybe almost 20 years later, I think.
Yeah.
And the movie just, it's bizarre. Like this movie is bizarre that we're talking about today with this totally made up story, but this is like on a whole other level. It was like 3D animation, but like bad 3D animation, early 3D animation.
It's like 3D animation that's still in the modeling phase on Blender.
Yeah, yeah, it's like what now would be like a storyboard phase. And like that was their final design. But it's like all of these magical tools that the Blue Fairy, who rides a motorcycle, has brought to life, and they're going to eventually create Pinocchio. But in the meantime, they're like time traveling do-gooders. It's like this is the most bizarre idea for a Pinocchio movie I've ever heard, and I really wanted to watch it. And I'm like, I even though I know it's probably horrible, I still weirdly want to see this movie.
The weird thing is it had like a lot of voice talent to it, like you said. Like there was Tom
Yeah.
Bosley, Rene Auberjonois was in it. There were a couple other names I recognized. Like wow, I guess voice actors can't really pick and choose what they want to do.
Well, the one I didn't recognize her name. I'll see if I can pull her up. She played the Blue Fairy, and she actually seemed like she was into it. And like one of the things that Nikki sent me when they were looking into it was this website that I think was built while they were trying to get funds for the movie.
Claudia Christian.
I think so, yeah. She was like the narrator on this whole presentation asking people to help fund the movie to get it made. So like I think some of them kind of were into it for whatever reason. And like people in the behind the scenes stuff that I was watching were praising the script, even though the script to me sounds like a fever dream. Time traveling magical tools brought to life by the Blue Fairy eventually go on to make
Maybe
Pinocchio.
they had a different script than we expected from than what we saw in the trailer. I don't know.
I don't know. It sounds absolutely bizarre. And that's saying something when we're going to get into this movie, which is also bizarre. But this was like a whole different kind of bizarre.
It reminds me a lot of that. You know that animated film called like Rhapsody Kids.
I know the name, but I don't know
Yeah,
what it is.
it's nefarious because it has incredibly horrible animation, and it's like a Christmas movie with like these CG characters, but they look incredibly like models. But it has like um Mark Hamill as a voice, and Jodie Benson, and like so many big voice actors, and everyone's like, how the heck did they get involved in this? I think
Was it
Nostalgic
good
Critic
or
did.
was it
Oh, it was horrible. Yeah.
okay?
I mean, I didn't see it, but I mean, based on everything I've seen, it just looks horrible.
Well,
Like the Nostalgia Critic did a thing on that a few years ago.
part of me wonders if this was like I'm giving it some severe benefit of the doubt here. Maybe it was a really good story, but and it was like Hoodwinked, because Hoodwinked looks horrible. But I love that movie.
I mean,
It
I
has
think
a
Hoodwink looks a billion times better than Geppetto's Secret ever
That's
looked.
true. That's true. But it's one of those things where the animation is passable at best. But the script was actually good and it was hilarious and the songs were good.
Oh, Hoodwink.
So
Yeah, no, no, I totally agree. I loved Hoodwink.
yeah.
It's one of my favorites.
So I was like, maybe, perhaps Geppetto's Secret was something like that. It's better than we could have imagined from the little bits that we got. But the little bits we got weren't that impressive. So I'm
That's
it's like
putting it mildly.
like I said, I'm really giving it the benefit of the doubt here. I still would like to see it, but I don't think that's going to be possible.
If anyone from the cast or crew of Geppetto's Secret is listening, please contact Jonathan North so we can get an interview or like more answers to our questions.
Yeah, it's just that was a very bizarre rabbit hole that I went down the other day, making notes for this one bizarre Pinocchio movie, and I discover this other only partially created bizarre Pinocchio movie.
Because you sent me the trailer, and when I'm watching it, I see on YouTube it's been posted 15 years ago, which is like wow, very old for YouTube. So I'm thinking I'm sure I would have heard of this had it been released, even if it was
Yeah,
horrible. So
probably.
like something maybe like you said, it got stuck in production hell somewhere.
Yeah, probably. But it's one of those things where like there's just so many bizarre versions of Pinocchio. I was like, okay, there's another one with time traveling magical tools and a blue fairy that rides a motorcycle.
Has there been a horror Pinocchio? Like
Yes.
Pinocchio?
Oh
Okay,
yes, there
never
has.
mind.
I haven't watched it. I don't have any immediate plans, but if I ever run out of Pinocchios, I might have to.
What else is left? We have sci-fi Pinocchio, I guess, with AI. Um,
There's even more than that. There's one there's called Pinocchio 3000 that's
there
looks
we go.
about on par with Geppetto's Secret for the animation. There's another even older one from the 80s called Pinocchio in Outer Space.
I mean, even the Guillermo del Toro's one is a World War II story.
Yeah, everybody does their own thing with it. I haven't yet seen one that really faithfully captures the book. Well, beyond the ones we've already talked about, we also have some fairly big names in this movie, including Ed
Oh yeah,
Asner as
it has.
Sylvester J. Scalawag.
Him, I was trying to guess. I was like, this guy's a good voice actor, but I can't put my finger on who he was until afterwards. And I realized
The characters of the cat and the fox have kind of been replaced by this raccoon,
raccoon and a monkey.
and the monkey is Frank Welker. And he's at first I thought he was just going to be like a silent character like the cat usually is.
Oh no! Then he opens his mouth.
Yeah, and it's like he's supposed to be some sort of, I don't know, vaguely offensive Middle Eastern stereotype. I'm not sure exactly what they were going for with him.
That's what it sounded like at the end. So I don't know what they were going for, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I love how Ed Asner's character is actually named Scalawag.
Yeah. And like all these people at the beginning crowding around him, acting like he's the greatest thing. I was like, it's right there in the name. You're being bamboozled.
Scalawag's honest liquor. Not liquor, elixir. That's what I'm looking for. Elixir.
And then the other big name that everyone would recognize is James Earl Jones as the Emperor of the Night.
I actually did not recognize him at all in that movie until after I saw the credits. I was like, wow, I did not recognize him as James Earl Jones.
I knew that he was going to be in it because I read it, but like his voice
Mm-hmm.
is it's James Earl Jones. I would have known him anywhere.
I guess compared to this is a number of years before Mufasa. So
Yeah, but it was like right in the middle of Darth Vader, so
yeah, that's true.
this is kind of a step down from Darth Vader.
The character looked pretty like he was drawn pretty evil, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, it was a good character design. Like there was a lot in this movie that was potentially good, but also a lot that just made no sense. There's so many plot holes in this whole thing.
And the whole Grumblebee, he just kind of unnerved me with he's a bee, but with like a face of a person on it, like
Yeah,
that.
like he was like a centaur but a bee. Like his
Yeah,
top half was a human and then the bottom half was a bee.
yeah, that just kind of unnerved me.
It was weird.
I liked his voice. I like that, but no, his just design was just off.
Yeah, I thought he was a pointless character. And to some extent, so was the
Yeah,
glow
just
bug.
yeah. But I guess the glow bug was there to be the Jiminy Cricket or the G
Yeah,
Willikers, but
but
yeah,
he
the bee
kept
there
he
really was no reason.
the glow bug. He was like barely with Pinocchio. Like he was separated from him all the time. Like his whole point was like, oh, I got to get to Pinocchio. I got to rescue Pinocchio. And then he gets there and then they get separated again. It's like you could have cut this character and the movie would have been virtually the same.
Like Geppetto is pretty much a pointless character. Like in the beginning of the movie,
Yeah,
after
him
Pinocchio
too.
runs away, we don't see him again until the very end of the movie. And for
Yeah.
so like yeah, he's
And
barely needs to be in it. So one of the things I didn't understand about this movie, it takes place after the events of what we know as Pinocchio, apparently, because Pinocchio is a
yeah.
human now. He's been changed from a puppet into a human by proving himself worthy or being a good or whatever, whatever. But but it's like it doesn't seem like he's actually learned anything that he was supposed to have learned, and like anything he learns now is seems to be a
Uh-huh.
brand new lesson of being truthful or not falling for temptation. So I'm trying to think, what the heck did he actually do in the before this movie to earn being transformed into a real boy that now he's learning it all for the first time again? So that kind of confused me a little bit.
Yeah, everything about Pinocchio and his backstory was confusing. He just it's like that this is the sequel to a movie that was never made,
Yeah,
and they tried to, like, I don't really know what they were trying to do, but it was like they were trying to tell the story of Pinocchio after the story of Pinocchio, but they were still trying to tell it again.
exactly.
Like a lot of the stuff was like parallel to the
Correct.
things that
Yeah.
should have happened in whatever the first movie was that they never bothered making.
Even with its own monstro, which I think was just a floating gambling city, wasn't it?
I don't really know.
Or float, no, not gambling, but like, well, the kids just did what they wanted to do.
Yeah, that yeah. Plus, I mean, we already said G. Willikers, he's basically Jiminy Cricket.
Literally, yeah,
So did their version have a cricket in the first whatever didn't happen or didn't get made?
exactly.
Is this the
Guess
second
guess
bug?
not. The first one left, and that's why she made this one from wood. She gave him life instead of giving a real cricket. He's like, you can't handle a real cricket. I'll give you a wooden
Yeah,
one.
maybe whatever movie came first or whatever would have come first was a more faithful adaptation of the book where he murdered the cricket.
He just
So she
murdered,
was like, you can't squish this one. He's made of wood.
and he floats, so you can't drown him either. And like, there's a scene where there's the evil carnival, and which is run by an evil puppet master, Puppetino, and Pinocchio gets trapped there, and the Puppetino transforms Pinocchio back into a puppet as punishment. So I
Uh-huh.
thought the rest of the movie was going to be about him trying to redeem himself and
So
relearn
did
how
I.
to be yeah, regain his humanity. But nope, the blue fairy comes in 5 minutes later and undoes everything, and we're all back to where we started. There was no point to that.
And then it happens again later on.
Exactly.
It's like, what? Who thought this was a good idea? Like, there's so much in this movie that makes no sense. Like everything with the Emperor of the Night, none of his powers make sense. None of his motivations make sense. It's just, I think somebody just had some vague ideas and was like, we got to get these on paper. And then they just went with the first script that they thought of. Nobody checked it. Nobody did a rewrite. Just, yeah, we got something. The kids will like it, whatever.
Yeah, it could have been like studio interference, like they didn't have time to finish it or something, and we ended up with this. But
Yeah, I don't know. I think the vague idea of the Emperor of the Night maybe is their take on the coachman because his ship, like it has like a living carnival thing, like it grows out of this ship and then it lures all of the kids in. Like I'm not, and actually I'm not even sure what the whole thing with that is because he talked about Pinocchio was the only puppet that had ever been a human, but then he had all of these other puppets, and I thought the implication was that he was stealing children and turning them into puppets.
yes,
But then he later said that Pinocchio was the only puppet that had ever been a real boy, and that's why he was so important. So I was just confused as to what the deal was.
screenwriters were confused too, I think.
Yeah, and also what was up with Twinkle because they talked like she
Yes.
was just a puppet, but then he acted like she was so important and he really wanted to save her. And like at the end, she becomes a real girl.
Yeah, she didn't even do anything to. Maybe that's how Pinocchio became a real boy in the prequel. Like he didn't do anything, and someone just wished it, and the Blue Fairy did it. Man, that makes a lot more sense than anything else I could think of.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know. And if she was a real human at one point, why did someone name her Twinkle? What kind of a name is Twinkle?
Actually, there's actually a Bollywood actress named Twinkle. Actually, like that's
Really?
that's her birth name.
Is
Yeah.
it a stage name?
No, I think that's her birth name, Twinkle.
Is that something in India? Like, is that a, does it
No,
mean
no,
something?
no. It's like just the English word Twinkle.
Okay.
Well, her mother is named Dimple, so that maybe it just they they just kept the pattern.
They're just like English words, maybe? I don't
Yeah,
know. That's
like I don't
interesting.
know if if you've seen Tenet, Christopher Nolan's Tenet.
No, I haven't. I
Oh,
kind of
okay.
wanted to, and then the terrible reviews started coming in. I was like, it's now no longer a priority. I probably will
Oh,
see it eventually, but
I liked it a lot. Like much, it's way better than Interstellar. Anything better than Interstellar is good for me, for Christopher Nolan wise. But yeah,
I liked
Dimple.
Interstellar, so maybe I'll like it then.
Oh gosh, well I don't know, man. but but Dimple Kapadia, she was in that movie. I think that was one of her first Hollywood movies, if not her first one. But yeah, she's the mother of the actress I'm talking about in Twinkle.
Hmm. Okay.
Maybe she watched this movie and loved the name Twinkle. Maybe that's where it came from.
It could be. When was the real Twinkle born?
Pretty sure before the 80s. So there goes that theory.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, but yeah, the girl's name is Twinkle.
Yeah, and I don't really know what to think of this good fairy. Like she's not called the blue fairy in this one. She's the good fairy or the fairy godmother.
Even though she's the bluest fairy I've ever seen in a Pinocchio film.
Yeah, yeah. So she needed the name the blue fairy and they didn't give it to her.
Exactly. Again, I think it's back to that keeping things different from Disney when you can't sue us and actually make the case work.
Yeah.
G. Willikers, good fairy. It's not a cat and a mouse, it's a raccoon and a monkey. Total different movie.
Even though they could have used them because they're in the book as a cat and a fox.
That's true.
But yeah, the blue fairy or the good fairy. I keep wanting to call her the blue fairy.
Glinda,
I
yes.
probably even wrote that in my notes somewhere, but she is one of the most confusing fairies. Like I know there's a lot of magical creatures that like speak in riddles and don't give you all the information, but like there is so much that she could have said that could have just stopped all of this. But instead, she just sings an extremely 80s song about love and freedom and not taking things for granted and then disappears.
Bring up another point I forgot. This movie was a musical. It had like 4 songs.
Yeah, and it was very 80s, like very of the times.
I don't know what they were, but let's just say I don't remember any of them today. And I watched
Me
this like two
neither,
days
and
ago.
I watched it 2 hours ago. So,
There we go.
but yeah, she's her whole thing at the beginning when she shows up for his first birthday. It's like, I was like, what is going on here? Because she's singing this song, and Pinocchio looks at her like he's drunk. He just has the derpiest facial expression as she's singing. I was like, this is so bizarre. And then at the end, when she talks about not taking his freedom for granted or he might lose, I was like, this sounds like a very vaguely specific threat. Because she talks about him not getting turned back into a puppet. I was like, what are you planning to do, fairy?
She and Puppeteer have been working side by side.
Yeah, then Pinocchio says, but who could turn me back into a puppet? And she says, I really must go now. Enjoy your present.
That was very sketchy. Yeah. Whoa, look at the time. Well, I must be going.
There was so many things like that in this movie. It was like, all we need is just another line of explanation, and you could have fixed whatever plot hole you just created.
Nope.
And she kept going on about freedom of choice is your greatest power and use your freedom wisely. I was like, this is such a weird moral that you're trying to like force into this movie. Like they said it so many times, it was like they really want people to take this away from this movie, this freedom of choice idea.
I guess again, back to my theory. I think they just want to, distance themselves from, choose the right choice in temptation. So they
Yeah,
phrase it differently.
yeah,
Freedom of
yeah.
choice.
But yeah, the whole movie comes about because Pinocchio is supposed to do this delivery of this jewel box that is like the most expensive thing that Geppetto has ever made. But then the discount fox and cat, the raccoon and the monkey, trick him into trading
Love
it
that.
for a ruby, which is fake. And then Geppetto gets mad, so Pinocchio runs away from home.
And that's where he goes to Puppeteer and
Yeah,
becomes a puppet again. Then the
yeah.
good fairy saves him briefly,
Briefly
yes,
becomes a
like
puppet
for like
again.
5 minutes at most. And then he's like, okay, I'm still gonna run away, but now I'm gonna go find the jewel box.
Yeah.
I
So
forget what
then
happens after that.
in a couple days I'll have forgotten all of this too, because there was so much that didn't make sense that it becomes forgettable. Except for a few scenes that were like, what on earth was happening here? those those specific scenes will stick in my head, but we haven't quite gotten to them yet. But yeah, that's also where he met Twinkle, who was just a puppet, but they really focused on her. Like you they really wanted you to think about Twinkle, and to me it seemed like they want you to assume that she was once a real girl.
Sure.
And then they also have this whole side story with Willikers and Grumblebee. Like
Oh yeah.
who thought of these names?
As soon as I saw the character, I called him Colonel Bumblebee, like as a laugh. And then he introduces himself as Lieutenant Grumblebee. Like, oh, okay, I wasn't far off. I can originate.
Yeah, they're in the movie, but they're not part of the main story. Like they have their own thing going on. Like Grumblebee keeps getting caught in things, and Willikers has to keep saving him.
I guess they're the comic relief, maybe. I don't know.
Probably. Like at this point, Willikers is trying to find Pinocchio, so he like gets to him about the time that the blue fairy does. I mean the good fairy.
The good
I'm
fairy,
just gonna
yes.
probably just keep calling her the blue fairy because
I think we all know who
that's
you mean, yeah,
basically who she is.
literally. And yeah, he the Grumblebee, he's voiced by Jonathan Harris, who I know best as the voice of the the mantis in A Bug's
Yeah.
Life.
I know he's like a big actor from Days Gone By, but the
Yeah.
Bug's Life role is the one that I knew best.
G. Willikers, I didn't really, as a character, I didn't care one way or the other. I think I just liked it just because I like Don Knotts. So I just liked listening to
Yeah.
him. But like you said, he doesn't really help all that much.
Yeah. I mean, I like Don Knotts, so that was his one saving grace, but other than that, the character was kind of pointless.
I think if I remember correctly, this was Don Knotts' first animated film that he did a voice for. And it was also Ed Asner's first animated film that he did a voice for.
That's interesting.
But Ed Asner, I know he made a living with doing voices for
Yeah,
shows and movies and stuff. Don Knotts did a
yeah.
couple more movies, and I don't think he did many TV shows. I remember he was in Garfield and Friends, pretty much playing himself. But
And who could forget his memorable role as the mayor in Chicken Little?
here, take the keys to the city. Take that. His last role before he died. Poor guy. Well, no, I think he did something else after that, but one of the last roles before he died.
What a way to go out.
No man. Pinocchio and the Emperor of the Night, Chicken Little, Tom Sawyer. He never really. Let's just say he never was the. He never made a big animated film appearance.
No, I don't think so. Because I know anytime that I've realized he was in something, it was always something obscure.
Yep. There's no starring Don Knotts as the voice of Buzz Lightyear or something.
Well, there's one that comes to mind, one that I haven't seen since I was a kid, but one of these days I'll probably do a podcast on it.
Uh,
And not that it was fully animated, but it was The Incredible Mr. Limpet.
okay, I always wanted to see that, but I never did.
I remember watching it as a kid, and then
I forgot that's animated. That's half animated. Yeah, you're right.
yeah, and then I think I was either reading about it or watching a video about it like a year or two ago, and I was like, I don't remember this at all. This is incredibly bizarre. I can't believe they marketed this to children. I need to watch this.
I got to see it sometimes. I've been wanting to see it for a long time. I've seen his Disney films he's done as well as like The Ghost and Mr. Chicken.
I know that title, and that's one that I probably should see, but I haven't watched that one.
That one was pretty good if I remember correct. I think you'll like it.
The ones I remember him in was the Apple Dumpling Gang. I remember that
Mm.
from when I was a kid. I don't remember much of the movie except for him.
That Put Them
And
Again Returns. That's
yeah,
pretty good too.
he did. I think he did too. And then he was, of course, in.
He did a few more live action Disney
I keep
films.
I keep wanting to call it Andy and Opie. It's the Andy Griffith Show. I don't know
Eddie
why
and
my
Opie
brain
is
is
the
trying to.
remake they're gonna make next year.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Exactly.
But no, that's the main thing I know him
No,
from was the Andy
yeah, yeah.
Griffith Show. But I think
That's
that's the
probably
main
his.
thing everyone knows him from.
Yeah. No man, here are the rules. I can't do Don Knotts impression, but like yeah, like in the Ghost of Mr. Chicken, there's a few Andy Griffith Show actors in that, so you'll feel at home. I guess some people know him best from the Three's Company, people who grew up in that time. But yeah,
Oh, I forgot about that. I
Andy's
haven't
Griffith.
watched a lot of that, but I watched a little of that. So yes, I do know him from that too.
I don't think I've seen a full episode of it, but I've seen like clips.
I think it was part of a block of like repeats from the 60s and 70s that was on like in the middle of the night. And
Mm.
like I went through a phase where I would like either stay up really late to watch all these old shows or I would tape them to watch the next day. The ones that I watched most from that block were Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie. So I don't remember if that was
Okay,
part of it or not, but I know there was a I know I've watched some of it, just not a lot of it.
I haven't seen either of those two either, but I guess most of the old sitcoms I've watched have been '70s ones, like all the Norman Lear stuff and Barney Miller and a lot of stuff in the '70s. The '60s, I think it's only Andy Griffith Show is the main thing for me.
Anyways, back to the
Oh yeah,
movie.
back to Pinocchio.
Yeah, Pinocchio eventually he is almost going to get scammed again by I keep wanting to say the fox and the cat, but it's the
The
raccoon
discount,
and the
the
monkey.
discount Fox and Cat, as you call it.
To me, the characters are basically interchangeable. I'm sure that's the kind of characters that they were going for. They
Okay,
just made them different animals. And they're gonna like double cross him. They're gonna like sell him to Papatino again. But then they feel sorry for him when he saves them from I guess it's a barracuda. The
oh
like
yeah,
where's this movie set? Because I don't think I'm like 99% sure barracuda don't live in the rivers of rural Italy.
There we go. There you go, filmmakers. How's that for realism there? Show me a barracuda in the rivers of Italy. I'll give you your money back.
Maybe they are. I don't know. But it seemed like a weird choice. But anyways, after that, they decide that they're not going to sell him again.
Mm.
But then it's too late. They are already at the ship, and it like sucks them inside.
And the ship pretty much is a monstro. It looks like the whale from the outside.
I guess so. I never really
To
thought of it
me,
like that,
yeah.
but there's so many things that are sort of like that. Like it's similar enough that
Mhm.
I wouldn't be surprised if they decided that that was going to be their version of Monstro.
With their own version of Pleasure Island, I guess.
Yeah,
Inside.
the neon cabaret.
Now that you say 80s thing, I get it now.
Yeah, there's this whole thing with this creepy gondolier guy. Like he's offering him a ride to the jewel box down a dark path, and then there's this bright, seemingly happy place, the land where dreams come true, where he like can get all the toys that he wants and have a great time and whatever. It's like all this stuff has happened to him because he went the wrong way. You would think he would have learned by now, but no, he wants to go to the neon cabaret and drink suspicious green liquid that will make you feel great.
Trust me.
I think he's at this point, I think he's getting drunk because he starts
Yep.
seeing things, including Twinkle. And then he wakes up on this stage where there's all these cheering fans calling for him. And he's like dancing in some sort of hallucinogenic drug trip. I don't know what's going
Right.
on.
I think all these obscure 70s, 80s animated movies had one hallucinogenic drug scene in them.
But this one was weird because I think other people could see it too. Because Scalawag and we didn't even say the monkey's name. The monkey's name is Igor,
Oh, yeah. I
like
forgot.
Igor, but pronounced Igor.
I gore, you gore, we gore.
I wondered if they actually knew how to pronounce Igor or if they just saw the word and thought it was pronounced Igor. I
Nothing would
don't know.
surprise me.
But they decide they're going to rescue him from this. I think because they can see all these things that are happening. I think, and then they like dress up as the dancers because there's like these sparkly dancers. But they just reminded me of the scene in Mulan, the concubines,
Oh, okay,
ugly
yeah.
concubines.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, now it makes sense.
That was the first thing that popped into my head when they jumped up on stage in those dresses. It's like I don't know who they were trying to trick anyways, because like I don't know how much of that was even real. Like I'm very confused by everything that happens in this whole scene. But anyways, this Puppettino character comes back and he's joined by the boatman who is also a doorman, and then the ringmaster from earlier, and then he turns into this giant thing with four arms, like he's this massive wizard demon called the Emperor of the Night.
Finally getting to what our title is about.
Yes. They are like demanding that Pinocchio sign this contract that will make him a puppet again. And this is where they talk about him not being like the other puppets because he's the only one that has been a real boy, which it seems like they were insinuating otherwise, but like I said, I'm very confused by most of this. And he ends up locked in a cage because he won't sign it. And
This is also
Scalawag,
where we see Geppetto again, finally, from the beginning of the movie. Because
yeah, right after
apparently,
this,
oh, okay,
because Scalawag and Igor are in this cage also, and they tell him that the Emperor gets his power from those who fall prey to their own temptations. And they say that every time someone gives up their freedom, he gets stronger. And if the only puppet in the world to ever gain his freedom were to lose it, it might destroy the good fairy. And I was just like, what? How do you go from this to this? I don't understand the logic of this weird magic.
it's a lot of steps, a lot of steps.
Yeah, yeah. And then this is where you find Geppetto again because they get sent
Okay,
for, and the
Yeah,
emperor is again
I
demanding they
forget the order that
sign.
all these things
I
happen.
know, I know. There's it's so convoluted. Both of these scenes could have been combined into one, but instead they had to have this intermission where they're in a cage for some reason.
Explain, the
Yes,
losing the freedom thing and destroying the good fairy thing.
yes. And Pinocchio is still refusing, so they act like they're going to give him his jewel box and let him go free, along with Twinkle for some reason. But then they reveal that Geppetto has been shrunk down and is now living inside the jewel box. Okay, it makes as much sense as anything else. And then, as soon as he sees this, he immediately offers to sign the contract, as long as the Emperor frees everybody. So he signs it. He gets changed back into a living puppet. But then the Emperor was apparently lying, of course, which
But
enrages Pinocchio, and he starts glowing blue for some reason. And he asks the Emperor, if he's so powerful, why make him sign a contract? Which is like, that's what I was thinking the entire time in both of these scenes. Like, why is this contract so important? But then you get back to the thing the Blue Fairy was talking about, because the Emperor says that it's because only he can choose his fate. So Pinocchio says that he chooses never to see him again, and then all the other people do the same thing, and they say that they choose what happens to them. And the Emperor is like shrinking and yelling, "How dare you defy me?" It's like, why why? I don't understand why any of this works.
I think someone in the writer's room said, "Hey, if he's so powerful, why does Pinocchio need to sign a contract?" And no one else could think of a reason why, and they just threw that into the movie. Like, okay, well, I'll just will it that we're going to send it up to you, and that destroys him.
Yeah.
Makes about sense as we expect.
Well, I mean, it gets weirder before he's fully destroyed, because the good fairy is like speaking. I think she's just a voiceover at this point. She says that he needs to always remember that freedom of choice is his greatest power. And then they they say they're going to leave this terrible place and go home where they belong. And the emperor's like, because Pinocchio's glowing blue this whole time, and he's like yelling, "No, keep the blue light away! Stop him!" And Pinocchio says, "It must be the power of my fairy godmother."
Wow.
And then the emperor's like zapping everything, and like the whole place is crumbling around them, and they're all running. And Pinocchio grabs Twinkle on the way out. And then the emperor turns Puppetino into a puppet, and then I think he explodes. Because after this, like the entire ship is on fire, and they're all trying to get out, but then the neon cabaret appears again, and then they get lost in a maze of doors and hallucinations. And I'm like, this is why people say that movies from the 80s are like being on drugs, because this was so bizarre that none of it made sense. And then Pinocchio uses his lying powers to make his
Oh
nose grow.
yeah.
It's like half the movies I've seen recently with Pinocchio, like they use his nose as a superpower.
And Robert Zemeckis.
Yeah, I mean, even the Guillermo del Toro one did it, but everything that I didn't like about the Robert Zemeckis movie that the Guillermo del Toro did, also I forgave. Like
Yeah,
I, I felt hypocritical, but like it was they did it so much better, so I could forgive it.
that's true.
But yeah, they do it here too. He has to open a door with his giant nose, and then Grumblebee and Willikers show up to lead them out of the place. And the Emperor like bursts out of the ship, says Geppetto is going to pay for Pinocchio's actions, and then Pinocchio like turns into a blue orb and runs at him, and apparently that kills the Emperor.
Yes, yeah, I forgot all that.
None of this made any sense. I was just like, what is happening? And I probably said that multiple times while watching all of this unfold. What is happening? And then everybody wakes up on shore. Geppetto is his original size. Pinocchio's a real boy again. Twinkle is a real girl, and she says, "I'm free." And then the fairy appears, and he says, "Fairy godmother, it was you. You fixed everything." And she says, "No, it was you. You were willing to sacrifice yourself to save your father." It's like, that it, okay, Pinocchio was like all powerful then because all of this stuff should not have been able to happen because one boy was selfless. And then she gives Pinocchio the jewel box and tells Pinocchio he doesn't need her anymore and disappears
Never to be seen again until Geppetto's secret.
where she's riding a motorcycle. And that's basically the end.
Don't forget
Grum-
Grumblebee and Willikers.
yeah, he makes Willikers a member of the Royal Airbugs, and then everybody skips off into the sunset.
He's about to leave, and then he changes his mind and comes back, and yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
that's the movie.
This movie was hilariously weird.
One scene we didn't talk about, but it's one of the didn't really matter scenes is with Grumblebee and Willikers at Grumblebee's like hometown that's being attacked
Oh,
by this
fighting the
frog.
giant kaiju frog. I mean, it's a kaiju to the bugs.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
That
I
was
did forget to talk about that, but
yeah.
it was very inconsequential to the story as a whole.
Exactly. That's the only thing I could think of that we missed. But yeah, that's Pinocchio and Emperor of the Night.
Yeah. It was a weird
Do I
movie.
recommend it to anyone? No.
No. I mean, if you're wanting to watch a weird movie from the 80s, knock yourself out. But
I don't know. I feel you can find other ones that are
that's
better.
true.
Okay.
It reminded me of, I don't know why it reminded me of this. I think it's called We're Back, a Dinosaur Story.
Okay.
I don't know why it reminded me of that. It just a lot, probably the fact that it was just a weird movie that made no sense.
That movie had amazing animation, please.
It also had kind of a weirdly good voice cast, and I'm sad that it was Julia Child's only vocal role because I want more Julia Child.
It was Julia Child's only film role, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think she ever
It
did.
might have been. It
anything.
probably was. But I grew up loving her, so I wanted more. And I was sad that she had to be in this terrible movie.
The question I have is like how I don't think I saw it a few years ago and maybe 7 years ago and I didn't dislike it. I thought it was okay. But I just want to know how she got involved in that project.
That would
It's
be
always interesting
interesting
to me,
know.
like celebrities who do voice roles and like only one voice role in a movie. I always want to know how the heck did that idea come up? Like there's a South African animated film. I forget the name of it, but it had Desmond Tutu as a voice in as one of their characters. And to
Really?
me, to me that's like I don't know, asking the Pope to voice a character in your film. I don't know, like that's. I'm
That
sure
would
he
be
has
great if
stuff.
they could get a pope to do an animated voice.
Like Pope Francis. I know you're busy and all that, but we got this movie here. We need someone to play the father. Can you do it?
That would be hilarious.
So that's the only question I have. It's like like how do they get them when they do those? Like singers, I can understand because usually you get them to help with the songs, like Glenn
Hmm.
Campbell and Don in a Rockadoodle or Roger Miller and Robin Hood. But Julia Child, I nothing gets her. I just don't know who that is.
Yeah.
Or getting I don't know, like a Bill Clinton to voice a character or something. Like okay,
I mean, he seems more likely than Julia Child. I don't know why. It seems more likely that you would get somebody like him to do something before Julia Child.
probably way more expensive. I don't know.
Probably. I don't know. It was just so bizarre when I found out that she was in that movie.
Mm.
Anyways, how do we get on
I guess
that?
my question I had for you is what do you, based on just this movie, what do you think you would want to check out Filmation's other films?
Probably. I mean, I may not like the movie itself, but I'm glad I watched it just because I like it. I like it more for the historical significance.
Yeah.
Like, not that it was historically significant, but like, just I like just watching old obscure animated films. That's
No,
half the
yeah, I'm
reason that
with
I
you.
want to start my animation podcast is just to give me an excuse to watch more obscure stuff that I would never watch otherwise.
Yeah,
Like,
that's
even
what
if
I like.
it's terrible, I still like talking about them.
No, it's fun. That's why I like doing these with you too. But yeah, I would want to watch the rest of Filmation's films, but I don't, not based on this movie. I just previously wanted to watch their films, but this movie, I don't think I'd watch this movie again.
No, probably not me either.
Once was enough. But they have like happily ever after. That's something I wanted to watch, which is like a
Yeah,
a
the
Snow
Snow
White
White
ripoff.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's on my. Eventually, I'll probably do Snow White for every version ever, and that's one that I will have to do.
Okay.
There's a lot of animated Snow Whites as well, like cheap ones.
A lot of dollar store ones.
Yes, that's what I mean. Like any Disney movie probably has at least a handful of dollar store ripoffs,
That is true.
scientifically engineered to trick grandma into buying it.
I guess they make enough money to keep making them. They have a
Well,
horrible
they
budget,
did.
so
Some
they're
some
able
of
to make
them,
money.
a lot of those companies, I think, have gone under. So,
Okay, well, no surprise there.
I mean, when one goes under, another pops up. So it's probably the same people.
That is also true. But yeah, no, Pinocchio. I don't think I have anything else to say about Pinocchio and the Perfect Night. I always wanted to see it. I can't. Glad's a big word, but I'm
Yeah,
I saw it, and yeah, I don't think I'll see it again.
yeah, same. I'm glad I watched it for this. I wouldn't watch it for my own entertainment, but I'm glad I've seen it.
There you go.
And yeah, I don't think I'll be watching it again.
Disney's 1940 Pinocchio is still the best to me, and that's the one I watch.
I think my favorite right now is the Guillermo del Toro one, but
Okay.
yeah, there are. I mean, I was gonna say there are plenty of other good Pinocchios you could watch instead of this, but there kind of aren't.
No, there are.
I mean, there
That's
are other good ones,
there
but
are others. There aren't many.
I
There
am
are
finding
others.
out that they're kind of few and far between because most of the ones that I've seen are ones that I would not watch again.
I guess this is a question I have for you. Is there any story that you've seen multiple adaptations of in which you think all the adaptations of them are bad and there hasn't been a good adaptation of that story?
I think I wouldn't say bad, and this is one I have
Mm-hmm.
not done for the podcast yet, but there has not yet been a an amazing version of A Wrinkle in Time. There hasn't been that
Okay,
many made, but
true.
and like I like the miniseries one well enough, but it wasn't the greatest adaptation. And then the recent Disney movie was sort of good, but it was like really different from the book.
You're way more forgiving of that than I was.
And they also cut out Aunt Beast, and I was really mad about that. So it was fine, but it wasn't great. I really want a good, really good adaptation of A Wrinkle in Time, and I haven't
Okay,
got it yet.
that's a good answer. Yeah, maybe not one that all of them are bad, but one that there really hasn't been a good, amazing adaptation of.
Yeah, that's the one I can think of right now. I would say there's more ones where most of the versions aren't very good
Yeah,
rather than all of them.
I'm trying to think if there's one for me. Oh, okay, maybe Animal Farm. I don't think I've seen a really good Animal Farm. That might be my answer
Yeah, that's probably true.
because I've seen the animated one from the 50s from Britain. I don't remember it much, but I remember not like being in love with it. And I've seen the 90s version with Pete Postlethwaite as the farmer. I forget who the animal voices were, but I remember not liking that so much either.
I remember
Okay,
being traumatized by the pig head in the fridge.
yeah, I don't remember that.
That's the only thing I remember of that because it was so horrifying.
Ouch, sorry.
No, I'm sure it'll be fine now. That is what I want to do eventually because I think they're working on a new version. So once
Andy
that's done, I
Serkis
would
has been
like to
working
do that.
on it for a while, but I think he had to put it on hold. And I think he recently went back to it again. He could probably make a good one, but yeah, I guess that'll be my answer. I haven't seen a really good, and or a good Animal Farm,
Yeah.
which is one of my favorite stories too. So there we go.
Well, I guess that will be the end of this episode. Do you want to let people know where they can find you if they want more from you?
Sure, you can check out my blogs, The Animation Commendation at theanimationcommendation.com, where I post animated uh, related movie reviews, top 13 list, and host my own Who Wants to Be a Millionaire Animation Just a Game Show. Or you can also check out my live action Disney project at myliveactiondisneyproject.com, where I'm trying to watch and review every single theatrically released Disney film ever made. This year will be the 10th anniversary of that blog, and I'm still going. So check it out. Thanks.
And you probably still have a ways to go, too.
Yeah, I'm definitely nearer the end than I was 10 years ago, but yeah, there's still a while of it to go,
They don't keep making them faster than you can review them.
sadly. Like, if you just hold up for like a year or so, that'd be great. Oh, I guess you could also follow my blog, Instagram at with.anim.com.
Okay. Well, until next time. Thanks for listening to Every Version Ever. If you like what you've heard, make sure to subscribe on your preferred podcast platform or to our YouTube channel. Make sure to follow my co-hosts as well, and if you want more content from us, check out one of the other podcasts in the I Heart Movies podcast network, or check out my brand new Patreon. My link tree, as well as any other relevant links, will be in the description. We'll be back soon with another brand new episode, so thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.